Hey friends, JC here. So I wanted to share one of my all-time favorite client sessions with you. It's just such a cool story, and you might hear a little sizzling in the background. Julie's cooking risotto, yummy. So the story is. The bigger context is this is for a clinic in my Aston patterning training, which is like a multi-year one. Movement, body work, ergonomics, all looking at our patterns, our unique individual patterns, and what opens up more paths of action for us in movement. And I apply that in broader ways too, but this is a great foundation. Anyway, so we have a clinic, and we have a movement clinic and a bodywork clinic. And for the movement clinic, this woman came in, and she sat down and started talking right away about, this is hurting me, that's hurting me. And I said, okay, all right, I'm listening, and making some notes of what she's sharing. And then I asked her something that I'm not sure if she was ever asked before, which was, what would you like to get out of the session? And she shared more of what was hurting. And I said, okay, great, thank you. And I listened and reflected back what I was hearing. And some of what she was sharing was that it was really difficult for her in walking, and I saw it when she came in. Her walk was kind of like that, and it was kind of moving around one of her hips, and I feel unbalanced when I'm walking, and my feet hurt and they're sore. And I said, okay, yeah. And I reflected back what I was hearing, and then I said, so it sounds like you would like to feel more ease and balance in your walk. And just the reframing of that, something kind of like opened a little bit in her. And she kind of had come in with this very compressed energy, just similar to the energy in her hip, very compressed. And she came in kind of like, I don't really know what I'm doing here, And I said, okay, well, let me give you a little bit of context. So I shared that, and that opened something up just a little bit. And she said, yeah, just opening to the idea of some sort of possibility. And then, so I said, okay, here's what before we went into something, we did a little bit of looking. I gave her a context of the session where I do a visual assessment and, look at what she's interested in, the walk, and look at all four views, and then do palpation and notice where I'm feeling more hyper tone, tension, and where I might be feeling hypo tone, or areas where there's more of a void or less presence in the tissue. And what I noticed, and as I'm doing this, I'm always sharing so somebody's able to learn for themselves what I'm seeing, what I'm feeling, and how that might be connected in with the areas that they're interested in. And so what I felt was tremendous tension in comparison in the back, in comparison to the front. And so some of what she was sharing was feeling held back in her walking and trying to move forward. And I said, this is interesting. So what I also saw visually when I did visual assessment is I was looking at her trying to get this. Look at her from the side, and displacement, front and back. And so the idea being that if she wasn't kind of more over herself and able to go forward, and she has parts of her holding her back, literally holding her back, that going forward is going to be very difficult. I feel like parts fighting in opposite directions, and so that if we can bring more of that displacement more neutralized to the midline, that would facilitate more of a pathway forward. And so I shared all of that context, and then I chose a particular movement design to go through, which was loosening, and working with leg loosening in particular. And so we started with that, and I did a little bit of guiding of the movement, and it was a new kind of movement for her. So this type of movement's a loosening. It's like a jiggle, like a jiggle, basically, like you're jiggling your keys. And it's different than stretching, which also actually creates tension in the other direction. It's different than other kinds of movement. We're actually loosening the joints. And so I took her through some of that loosening, and I was like, "How's that feeling?" And she said, "Yeah, that feels pretty good, And it's just at each movement, it's like something was softening, and then I invited her to do another movement, which was having her leg fall into my hand. So the first thing I actually did was just have her feel her leg resting on my hands, and I could feel that she wasn't really, she was still holding it quite a bit. And I said, how would it feel to let a little bit more of the weight come into my hands? And she said, okay. And she did that, and she was like, wow, yeah, that's really great. And like a sense of relief. And each time it was like I could see a softening through her whole system and through her face, and that's really great. Okay, great. So then I invited her to do a little bit of a loosening jiggle through that hip joint, and then I invited her to slide her leg down and feel the reverberation back through her whole body. And the first time that she did that, where she just slid her leg down, and it's like shoot, and I kind of did that sound effect, and you just kind of let it go, and then this reverberation comes back, and she felt it, and I didn't give you the context that she was probably in her early 70s, and just had this very compressed kind of embodiment and attitude. It was like everything sort of followed that, and as soon as she let her leg go, and then this reverberation happened, she had this little giggle, like it was like like a little kid, and it was this spontaneous giggle, and it was like, wow, it was so sweet. It was really joyful to see. And I was like, how's that? She said, that's really great, and starting to open up more and more. So we did more of those. And then she said to me, I have to bring you home with me. You have to come home with me so that you can do this. I said, I'll do you one better. I can show you how you can do this on your own anytime. How about that? And she was like, yeah, great. And that's a big piece of what I'm about. So I said, all you need is a pillow. So I brought her some pillows, and I showed her how she could still get that same reverberation, not just, coming into my, not just like letting her leg fall to my hand, but also through the pillow, and she felt it, and it was like just with me there in the presence, and with her, doing that on her own. And so, that was really great for her to experience. And by the end, we had her, so we did that leg, the other, and went through the sequence and went through kind of testing both sides to know how much to loosen, how much is a very important thing. Everything's like relative to each other. So working on creating more balance in the whole system. And so when she stood up, she just, because all those joints that had been so compressed were opened and they were juiced up, from this this loosening, the jiggle, all the jiggle and the movement. Literally they're juiced up. What's happening is that through all that compression and the tissues are dehydrated, and there's other things you might try to do that you would think, oh, that's hydrating it, but it's kind of like a sponge that's been so dry, and then you're just pouring water on it. It needs the water and it needs the movement to massage the hydration into the tissues. And so these kind of movements, this loosening does that. And so literally there's more juice in there, more fluidity, availability. And she got up, and so then the forces of gravity going down are more able to directly weight bear and feel the support of her legs underneath her, and the support of ground reaction force, which is the force that goes the other direction. Did you know? Where you can push off the ground and get that lift. That force could also, transfer up, and it's not just gravity weighing and it goes down, and then like the hydraulics, she was able to get that, and she felt the buoyancy of it, and she, just, it was almost like all these layers of just like, opened up around her face and around her, whole self. It was cool. And then we did a little movement cue, and my movement cue was also a water cue, since we were really working with that. And I just had her feel, holding her hand, to weight shift to one side and weight shift to the other side, and then to lean forward across her ankle joint, and then just feel that side to side movement. And then she was able to just walk forward. And at the beginning of that session, she said, I feel like I lost my stride, and that really touched me. And when we walked together, we did it a few times. I said, how's that? And I was doing this movement to get, with my hand, this gesture to kind of bring in that sense of the flow and that side to side that I was really wanting to encourage. And she was like, yeah, that feels good. I said, okay. So we did it a few times, and I said, now I'll start you off, and then I'm going to just kind of disappear. I'm going to fade away at some point. So I did that. I started her off holding her hand, and then it just kind of slowly faded away, kept doing with my hand. And she was walking, and I let her just keep walking all the way down. And then when she reached the end, she paused and she turned around, and she said, I got my stride back, And I just I gave her, 10 with my hands. I was like, amazing, you got your stride back. It was like, wow. And that was 90 minutes, I think. Maybe it was 2 hours, I don't know. 90 minutes, maybe 2 hours. And that was wow, to see the change in that. What's a better thing we could do with 90 minutes? You know what I mean? I just feel like, wow, that was so cool. So anyway, I wanted to share that with you because it was so neat. And yeah, hope you enjoy that story too. It's just seeing what's possible. And we got the train. So that's my cue. Till next time. Bye, friends.